So we start with this weird scientist putting this weird creature into his body. His eyes turn blue and he transforms into a werewolf. Cool. We cut to this guy, Lang Jun. He's having a typical night. He's making deliveries and listening to the radio. On the radio, he hears that there have been many disappearances as of late. He then gets a call from his uncle Zhang and he wishes him a happy birthday. Suddenly, he spots a car that was flipped over on the road. Lang quickly stops his vehicle and runs over to help. He reaches over to help a man who ain't looking so good. The weird creature we saw at the beginning of the movie jumps out of the man's wound and into Lang Jun. Lang Jun's transformation begins immediately. A team comprised of this girl and some ultra goons appears. They get ready to box, but my boy is a werewolf now, and he begins dispatching his foes left and right. The goons seem pretty useless as most side characters are, so the woman decides it's time for her to fire her special bullet. We know it's special because it's green. Bang! The bullet hits Lang Jun and he takes off. The guy who seems to be leading this operation does not seem very pleased. It also seems that he's looking for a human that's compatible with the little crawly creature that turns people into werewolves, but he's yet to find one. Alright, back to Lang Jun, and he's back to his human form, but he's down bad. He begins eating and behaving like an animal, then he vomits because he ate so much. He looks at himself in the mirror and sees a werewolf-like form staring back at him. He gets terrified and lays unconscious in his tub. When he wakes up, he finds out that he's basically the werewolf version of Spider-Man, with Venom's backstory. He can hear things from miles away, is quite built, and he's got blue eyes now. He hears on the news that they found claw marks at the bridge he was at, similar to some they found 12 years ago. Outside Lang's place, there's a guy with some pretty sweet drip watching him. Lang's walking down the road and he saves a little girl who's about to get hit by a truck that was not slowing down. That little girl must have made some enemies. He's looking at the girl, then he has a flashback of when he was a child. He remembers getting bullied, but he's rescued by his friend. Back at the present, he remembers that his friend had a boxing match today, so he decides to go check things out. He sees that his friend wins the fight and is getting hype. She might have got a little too hyped though because her opponent trips her off the ring for some minor attempted murder. But don't worry, didn't I tell you my boy Lang's got superpowers? He catches her in heroic fashion and gives her that look. These goons don't seem to like that Lang is coming in looking all smooth and stuff, so the head goon, whose dad by the way owns the boxing ring, challenges Lang to a boxing match. Lang says, okay, bet, knowing he's got superpowers now. The two men get into the ring and goon number one opens up with some fancy foot. Lang gets knocked out in one hit. We see that the leader of the commando force from earlier is keeping tabs on Lang and is watching the fight. He also has some alien-looking creature next to him that we can assume is similar to the creature that went into Lang's arm. So the commander of the force, Zhao, gives us some backstory. It turns out the scientist we saw at the very beginning of the movie, not the dead one in the car, was Lang's father. He died due to the alien creature and Lang grew up fatherless. Zhao has also been searching for someone compatible with the creature all this time. He believes Lang is his last hope for this experiment as the creature seems to have fully integrated with Lang. Speaking of Lang, let's see what he's up to. It seems he's vibing with his old friend, the boxing girl from earlier. And she gets a little closer, but it seems my man is not interested in all that. She asks him why he accepted the fight challenge. He opens his mouth to say something, but notices the bandage on her face has the same symbol as the company that has been tracking him. He remembers his father having the symbol on some documents, and the woman who shot him had it tattooed on her. She says it belonged to her brother that disappeared mysteriously. He says that he's seen her brother before. Suddenly, two men break down the door with guns in hand. The duo hide under the men's car and put a phone on the car to track them. His friend asks why the men were looking for him and he comes clean. He says there's a creature inside him and the men came to capture him to experiment on him. Lang heads over to meet his uncle so he can get more information about what's going on. When he arrives, he finds that his uncle's lab is on fire, so he rushes in to save him. He asks his uncle what the deal is with the company that's after him, but his uncle unfortunately doesn't know much about it. We see the dripped out guy from earlier following him, but it seems his sneak skill isn't very high because Lang catches him by hitting him with a log. He takes the man to his friend's house and they begin to ask him what's going on. He says he didn't want to follow them, but he's a hacker. He's caught many criminals and he's currently after the company that's chasing Lang. Lang invites him to join the group and he accepts. Hacker starts giving us some info, so it turns out the company they're after is famous for oil, but they have a secret dark side. They import chemical weapons from overseas to experiment on. And it's confirmed that Lang's father and his uncle Zhang used to work for the company. Hacker tells Lang's friend, whose name I cannot find anywhere, so we'll just call her Boxer. Hacker tells Boxer that he contacted her brother just before he disappeared. He found out that before people disappear, they're giving an option to play a game. She says that yes, she overheard her brother getting an offer to play a game. The next day, Boxer and Lang are going for a walk when he receives a call from Boxer. Uh-oh, last time we saw her phone, it was... Suddenly, commandos and this lady come in hot. They capture Lang and take off. Boxer chases after the car and goes off on these dudes. She takes out the goons with style and everything. She then hijacks the vehicle with Lang inside and they head over to see dear old Uncle Zhang. They say, Uncle Zhang, what's going on? I thought you didn't know anything about the company. He admits, okay, fine, you got me, and begins snitching. He says that Lang's father and himself were working on something that could cure any disease. Things were going fine and dandy when Lang's father suddenly died. Everyone got very sad and discouraged, so they stopped the project. He then takes him to a back room and continues. He says they were being funded by the mysterious company. Lang's mother passed away from illness, so Lang's father was very distraught and wanted to quit. The company didn't like that very much, so they locked him in a room and set it on fire. Lang gets pretty upset and goes into full anime protagonist mode. Uncle Zhang stops him and tells him he shouldn't do anything to retaliate because the company is full of real hitters. Lang goes, I'm about that though, and I'm ready for anything. And speak of the devil, the company shows up, along with their leader arriving personally. And he's strapped. Bang, he pops Uncle Zhang. Lang doesn't seem to like that very much and begins to transform into a man in a Halloween werewolf costume, but use your imagination, guys, and pretend he's a big, scary-looking werewolf. He attacks and begins eliminating foes left and right. Just then, Commando Lady shoots at Boxer with her signature green bullet, but Lang takes a shot. He transforms back into a human and Boxer pushes him out the window before he could be captured. Hacker arrives and, hey, where have you been? He tells Lang to chill as they're not ready to take on the company in his normal human form. He tells them not to worry because they won't do anything to Boxer. They're going to use her as leverage to capture him. This calms Lang down because it makes sense. Lang sits by the ocean and reminisces. He remembers his father and reaches down to touch his locket. He sees a young Hem with boxing gloves and heads over to show Hacker. He tells him that his father died due to a fire at a gym, so they find the gym and head over. They see wolf claw marks on the door. They head inside and find a box. Lang's able to open the box with his locket as a key. They see an old tape inside. Inside the tape, we find out Lang's father was working to create a cure for his mother. The cure was making a lot of progress and he tested it on himself. Just before he can give it to his mother, she passed. He then found out the company he was working for used his invention as a weapon and many people were dying due to it. This is what ultimately made him quit. Back to the leader of the company in Zhang's lab trying to get rid of all the evidence of the company. They're searching through the lab and find a device that looks kind of important. As the company leader is inspecting the object, he is suddenly killed. Just before we find out who the killer is, we cut back to Hacker and Lang storming the company's building. Hacker takes these guys out with his hacker abilities. We then see Boxer. She's locked up in a cell. It turns out she found her brother who's in the cell across from her. She tells her brother that Lang will be saving them, so they should hang tight. Lang suddenly appears in the facility, but some bad guy side characters also appear. Lang makes quick work of them. Cool. With that all done, Hacker, who stays looking drip, says they must find evidence against the company. They split up and Lang heads over to save Boxer. He finds her. While he's searching for a way to release her, Uncle Zhang appears. Uncle Zhang says they must escape the facility when a video suddenly plays. Uncle Zhang is trying to convince Lang's father to continue with the company even though people are dying. Lang's father refuses, so Uncle Zhang is the one that set the place on fire and dips, killing him. Lang finally realizes that none other than Uncle Zhang is the mastermind behind the company. Commando Lady comes through and is telling Lang that Zhang is the company's mastermind, but she's only loyal to the guy who thought he was the head, so she begins firing. She shoots, but bullets seem to have no effect on Zhang. He grabs Commando Lady by the neck. It turns out he's a werewolf. He begins transforming into a werewolf and Lang does the same. The two begin to battle. They really start going at it and end up outside. Hacker and Boxer save her brother, and then Boxer goes over to help Lang. She wraps a rope around Zhang's neck, but he throws her down and injures her. Just before he can finish her off, Lang grabs the rope and pulls Zhang up by his neck. Boxer then, I guess, plugs an electrical wire to this thing and blows Zhang away, killing him. Okay, the movie then ends with Lang reading a werewolf comic book while we find out on the news that he exposed all the company's secrets and also saved all the people that were missing. But we see that all the people that were missing have spots on their neck. And that's the end of our show, ladies and gentlemen. If you like this recap, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more videos like this one. Take care.